Hello, sweet friend. My name is Micah, and in this video, I was hoping that you and we can just hang out, have a little chat, and play with some fountain pen inks. And for that, I have this special box, and I tried wrapping it in this beautiful Avril yarn, and this truly feels like a gift. And it is actually a gift from you. So thank you so much for watching my videos, for subscribing to Cat Collage Club, and for this purchase in particular, thank you for using my Atlas Stationer's affiliate code. If you use that code, you get a little bit off of your purchase, and then I get a small commission that turns into store credit. So that went towards this beautiful thing right here. And let's unwrap this together. I hope that with this thing here, we can have some fun here on the channel, so you feel like you're getting something in return. This is, of course, the Kakimori Brass Nib. I don't know if you can see, it's actually embossed right here. And oh my goodness, it is so pretty. Look at that shiny, shiny thing. And this is, if you're unfamiliar, this is a dip pen nib. And it's a very special one at that. The construction is very unique, and it is supposed to hold a lot of ink. And of course, for a nib like that, you need a holder. So I got this one from the brand Tachikawa. I actually found this on Amazon. These Kakimori nibs also have a Kakimori nib holder, but I went for a cheaper model, truth be told. But look at that, isn't that beautiful? And it is quite weighty, which is kind of nice, I think, for especially for drawing, which I'm hoping to experiment with this nib. This is really nice. The nib holder itself is pretty hollow and pretty light, so this is quite a bit of front heavy, so we'll see how that goes. If you happen to have the Kakimori nib holder, let me know if they are a little bit more weighty, because, you know, that would maybe change the conversation a little bit about what kind of nib holder one goes for. All right, let's see what it's like doodling with this nib. I decided to use a Octopus Write and Draw ink in Brown Colibri. I was thinking that might be fun. This is sort of like a, saturated terracotta sienna kind of color. And so, of course, the specialty of this nib is that depending on how you hold it, you get different line widths. Look at that. That is so cool. And right out of the bat, it feels pretty smooth. Like, you can tell, of course, that it is metal and that it comes to a tip, but yeah, not in a bad way. Yeah, wow. And then if I hold it like this, okay, that's similar. Okay, so then I guess if I start drawing and tilting it, wow, that is probably gonna need some getting used to, because usually you get line variation in a nib, in a dip pen with pressure rather than rotation. That is really interesting. But yeah, that's kind of fun. All right, let's see if we can doodle some simple flowers. Yeah, that's always good, right? Okay, let's see. Just gonna start with an oval. I'm not gonna worry too much about really, you know, going for the line variation. I tend to not be a big line variation person to begin with. I just like the idea of being able to fill in shapes or having almost like accidental line width variation just by, you know, going around a form. Sometimes you get a little bit of a, wobble, if that's even a word in that. So that's pretty cool. Something else I'm really excited about with this nib is, yeah, to just be able to try out a bunch of inks and being able to draw with them and do illustrations without having to necessarily rely on having to ink up a whole pen. I feel like my pen preferences have changed lately too. This is a little bit of a has nothing to do with this nib necessarily, in that for a while I had been looking for fine and extra fine nibs, and last year I even had 2 of my fountain pens ground to a finer nib size, and this year I've been more into thicker lines, both for my drawing as well as for my writing, and so now I feel like I don't have a lot of pens that have a thicker line. And I even slightly regret having some of my nibs ground, to be honest. And so this is kind of fun because I don't have a lot of thicker nibs to draw with, and so I can't ink up a whole lot of different colors. And so this might be filling that spot a little bit, at least for a while. And so, yeah, we'll see how that all shakes out. It's also interesting how, yeah, you can tell when the reservoir gets a little bit lighter on ink. Color changes a little bit, but oh yeah, it's there I rotated it a little bit, and there was some more ink left. Very interesting. And then we need this stem. This flower got a little wonky there. Really heavy here on this side, but that's okay. Doesn't matter. Just trying things out, seeing how I like this. And then, of course, the biggest inspiration when it comes to playing around with inks and even using them watered down with a brush and then going over with more concentrated lines is Sophie McPike. A lot of you probably know her and know her illustrations. She just does magical things, I feel like. And yeah, she's a huge inspiration for sure. And so I wanna try and see what I can come up with inks, and to use them more often, and use them almost like watercolor or in conjunction even with watercolor, because yeah, some of the more interesting fountain pen inks, they obviously do things with, you know, sheening and shimmering or dual tone inks that a watercolor doesn't do the same way, or maybe even not at all, depending. And so of course I could see how you could combine the two to get some really neat effects. So yeah, kind of interested in exploring that next year. I tend to not be very good with value, I feel like. So doing washes, I tend to be more graphic, kind of like this. So it's also going to be interesting to try to be almost a little bit more painterly, or what I can come up with and embrace the sort of flatness of it all. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. Look at those lines, guys. That is so neat. So see, this is the kind of thing that I was hoping to get out of this pen, and that is, no, I'm not doing very much in terms of thick and thin lines, but even just the way you go around a form, there's just variance to the whole thing, and that is just so exciting. Next up, I wanted to try a new to me ink. This is Platinum Chou Kuro, if I'm saying that right. And what drew me to this ink is Platinum's claim that this is their richest black yet, their blackest black. And according to Platinum, this is 50% darker or richer, I'm not quite sure what the right adjective is there, than their carbon black ink, which is, yeah, a favorite amongst many. And so I wanted to try this because there is something very satisfying about drawing with fountain pen ink and with black in particular, and then the color just comes out so crisp in a way, and that is definitely true for this ink. There's just something very black about this. I don't know, it just looks printed in a way. So I had a lot of fun drawing with this. The one problem is that the nib holder that I bought is so thick that I smudged ink all over the handle, all over my fingers. And so yeah, I definitely need to figure something out. Probably get a inkwell or some sort of ink holder where I can dip the nib in without getting ink all over me and the nib holder. But yeah, really fun there to rotate the nib and get those thicker stripes on her pans. And yeah, it just looks very matte, the black. It doesn't have any undertones. It's just a straight up black and dries really nicely. And so this is really exciting. This ink is very expensive. You can only get it in a big 60 milliliter bottle, and the bottle is $60. So yeah. Okay, friends, there's a couple more things I want to share with you. For one, look at my nib holder. It is so messy already. This front part is a little too thick to fit into the sample vials. So you touch the sides and then it just gets all over the place and gets on your fingers. So for sampling inks, I will definitely need to get an inkwell or an ink miser of some sort to be able to dip more neatly so that I can keep my fingers and my nib holder clean. So yeah, that's something to figure out. I do like the ergonomics though. I do like this section. It's just, yeah, a little too thick for those sample vials. A couple more things about the Platinum ink. For one, I want to show you this. This is a Moleskine notebook, one with the cheap, bad Moleskine paper that I got really cheaply at TJ Maxx one day. One of the claims of the Platinum ink is that it is feather resistant, and so it supposedly works better on papers that are not necessarily fountain pen friendly. And so I was like, well, we gotta try that out, don't we? And so here are the results. This is the Platinum ink in a Kaweco medium, compared to a Lamy Safari, also in a medium nib, with the Atramatis Document Black ink, which I find to be a really good performer as well on different papers. But right out of the gate, you can tell how much blacker the Platinum ink looks on this paper. Isn't that amazing? But yeah, it looks really, really crisp. I mean, the Document Black ink, if I look really closely, I see a little bit of feathering, but it's not that much. But then, if we look on the back side of this, you can definitely see a difference. I hope that picks up on camera. There are teeny tiny spots with the Platinum ink, but I would think that if you put that in a fine or an extra fine nib, that you would even get rid of those coming through. But then, yeah, the Lamy Safari with the Atramatis, there's a bunch more bleed through spots. So yeah, that is really cool. So if you're someone who loves their Moleskine paper and wants to use a fountain pen, then that might be something to consider. So Platinum definitely delivered on that, I would say. The thing that I find a little disappointing is how the ink performs with watercolor and Tombow markers. Now, in the description, it says that the ink is water resistant, which, okay, that means it's not waterproof, so I can't necessarily fault them for that. However, I don't know what water resistant means necessarily, what they consider that to be, because it smudges really bad if you try to go over it with water, and it also smudges really bad with Tombow markers. And I've tried this at several stages, coming back after 24 hours, 48 hours, so it has nothing to do with giving it enough time to dry. It just does not want to be colored over. And that is really sad, because I really enjoy these rich, matte, black lines. It is so satisfying to draw with. And, you know, if you're someone who works a lot with black and white illustrations, who even maybe sells their work in black and white, that's great. I think this is the way to go. This is so matte and just black. But it does not work for watercolor or Tombow markers. So that is really, a little bit of a letdown, just because I love painting over my drawings. And so that unfortunately doesn't work for me. Then I quickly wanted to share, I set up a new swatch book, which is kind of fun, because I felt like I wanted a place to, one, always doodle with the color just to see what that looks like. And then I wanted to have a little bit of space to compare how the ink looks in different pens and different nib sizes. So yeah, I set this up in a B6 Slim notebook. Really, really fun. I've only done a few. And what I wanted to show you is, one, I think here again you can see the difference between the Platinum Chou Kuro and the Atramatis, how this is just black. And then here you have a little subtle variances. There's almost like a little bit of a brown color to it, which is nice. Like, if anything, I would like my blacks to lean warm more so than cool, but yeah, that's kind of fun. Another thing I noticed, because I was swatching a lot of these inks and doing these little doodles with the nib, is that if an ink is dry, it will feel dry with the nib as well. And maybe this is common sense, but to me, I thought I could get away with maybe drawing with the inks that I find frustrating in a fountain pen, and they would be less frustrating to draw with this nib. That is not the case. The inks that are frustrating no matter what you use to draw with. I don't know if you can tell, maybe here a little bit, if the camera wants to focus. I don't know if you can tell, but there's just some areas that all of a sudden get really, really dry. And what I find really frustrating with inks is if they are kind of watery and yet they still feel dry. That to me is the worst kind of ink. So yeah, that was just kind of interesting, that yeah, frustrating inks will always be frustrating no matter what you use to draw with. And then last but not least, I wanted to do a little experiment. I wanted to compare the line qualities, or a line quality comparison, between a fountain pen and the dip nib, the Kakimori dip nib. And because that was one of the main reasons I wanted to try this, because I felt like maybe, yeah, that would be a fun new adventure. This is the good old Tomoe River paper, so the old stock. And I'm hoping you can see, just even when you don't focus on line variation necessarily when drawing with the Kakimori nib, you do get some really interesting results where the pen maybe just deposits a little bit more ink. And I think that is very charming, that makes the drawings look maybe a little bit more casual, if you can call it that. It just has a little bit more of a something going on. And yeah, of course I had smudged that. I mean, you have to smudge one drawing if you're doing a couple ink drawings. So this is with the nib, with the Kakimori nib, and this is with the fountain pen. And I must say, if I was doing these drawings with this nib, I probably would have made them a little smaller. I think this is starting to be a little slim there, but I wanted to make them a little bigger so you can tell. So yeah, let me know if you see the difference, what you think of the differences in line weights and ink depositing, if you can call it that. That is something to take note of though. If you have, say, a colored ink and you want your lines to be a really consistent color, then you might be having some issues with the nib, because of course, as the ink runs lower and lower, the shade will change slightly, like the value will change slightly. And so there's going to be some inconsistencies, which you can't really tell here because, for one, I used a black, and two, I didn't really run out of ink, which is incredible. So I drew this drawing here, and then this here, and this here, and I think I did the teapot too. Yeah, so these. All with the same dipping. So I had drawn this first, and then I dipped it in the ink just simply out of habit, just thinking, oh, I finished one drawing, I need to dip it. But I probably would have been fine to draw this without dipping it again. And so then I was like, oh, let me see how far I can go. So yeah, I definitely did these 4, and I still had ink in the nib. I just cleaned it out because I was done drawing. So yeah, you can go a long way with this nib, which is probably another advantage of this one. Of course, there are dip nibs that give you line variation, and I think the Sailor Hokuro nib comes with a feed, or you can buy a feed, so that gives you a little bit of a longer time between dips, but I would guess that this still goes further than even that nib with the feed. Yeah, that's all about that. I hope you found this informative, and yeah, let me know if you have any questions, other things I can try out for you, or if you have a favorite inkwell of sorts to keep my fingers and my nib holder clean. And yeah, thanks so much for sharing this time with me. This was really, really fun. I know it's maybe a little bit on the nerdier side, but yeah, it's just fun to play with inks and draw with them and all that good stuff. All right, enough chatting. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy journaling!